everybody for making it today for the INCON learning session. I'm delighted to have Prem Bhawnani with us today. And he was previously the chair of the INCON Technology Group, and now he's working as a consultant to the event and other industries in the whole technology, AI, and cybersecurity field. So Prem is going to give us a presentation, and we're going to learn all about some practical steps that event professionals can take to protect themselves from cyber threats. And at the end of Prem's session, we can take questions, but if you do have anything for him during his presentation, you can put that in chat. And also just to let everybody know that we are recording today's session and we will have it available on the INCON website in a couple of days in case you need to share it with some of your colleagues. So hand over to you, Prem.
Thank you, Angela. So let me just share my screen. It's great to be here and reconnect with INCON again. So as Angela mentioned, I was the chair of the INCON Technology Collaboration Forum before. And I have really great memories and great relationships that I made at that point in time. So excellent to reconnect. So we'll talk about practical cyber resilience in 2025. That's a topic for INCON Learning today. And before we jump in, I just thought for those who don't know me, a little bit of an introduction. So I've got over 20 years of technology experience. I was awarded top 25 innovative leaders in IT a couple of years ago. I've been in tech leadership, executive roles for over 12 years, 8+ years in the events industry. Last 3 years with AI solutions, that kind of stuff, certified Google AI leader and other certifications. And previously I used to be a technology executive, and more recently I've branched out into a business owner and a consultant. So I run my own consultancy, but I also have a fractional CIO engagement on digital strategy with ActivateUTS, which is one of the university arms in Sydney. And I'm also a practice director for AI and emerging tech for Alkemiz, and that's working with larger organizations in the space of data, AI, and the rest. So that's a quick intro about me, and a fun fact, the image on the left-hand side was created with the help of AI as well. But I thought it looked quite realistic, so I kept it. The agenda for today, we'll talk about what the security perimeter looks like in modern events. What are the key threats, the real-world event breaches, some examples that I might talk to, and the takeaways from those examples. Managing third-party and supply chain risks, AI threats, and responsible use in events. So there's no presentation that's complete without AI these days, right? Cost-effective security controls, which I'm sure many of you are also interested in. Data handling and ransomware preparedness, and then human risk compliance and assurance. And as Angela said, I have quite a bit to run through. I'll try to make it interactive with a few questions, but we'll leave most of the question and answers towards the end of the presentation. So jumping in, what does the expanding security perimeter in modern events look like today? So we often think, okay, it might be vendors, it might be devices, it might be staff. We need to look at all the myriad of digital tools that we use today, because it's not a matter of one or two tools. Now each organization, I think, has more than 100 different technology tools that are in use at any point in time. But even in the context of events, I think there's a lot more, right? So if you look at this slide now, every single entity that is listed over here, you have to think about security in some way, shape, or form. So whether it's attendees, vendors, contractors, freelancers, event staff, ticketing providers, registration tools, all the rest. But there's more. There's touch terminals, social media platforms, event mobile apps, badge printers, email systems, etc. You need to look into as well and make sure that they're secure. But there's more. There's AI tools, approved and non-approved AI tools. You need to think about communication templates around incident responses. You need to think about data storage locations, backups, all those things. For your events, travel and logistics, venues, VIPs, how to treat them differently or more safely. So there's a lot to think about. So when an organization tells me that, oh, we've got everything covered and we're quite mature of an organization, sorry to break the news to you, but if you think you have it all covered, think again. There's no way that you can cover every single security risk. There's a lot that you can do, but it's also about doing the basics well and doing the basics right. And aside from that, it's educating the people that you work with in your organization, but also beyond your organization. And then lastly is about how do you respond, should an event, an incident happen. So let's look at some of the key threats and real-world data breaches. But before that, I thought I'll ask a quick question, a short game, to all of you. So which of these three statements would you say is false? So statement number one, most breaches are caused by sophisticated hacking tools. Statement number two, one compromised vendor account can expose your attendee data. Or three, a leaked password from 2021 can still be used to attack you today. So which do you think is false? If you type that on the chat, 1, 2, or 3, and I'll have a quick look on the side as well. So I can see some ones coming through. Yep, so yeah, it's pretty obvious, right? So I think we all understand that most breaches today are not really caused by sophisticated hacking tools. It's not the movie character that you see in Hollywood or something, someone with a hoodie who's trying to do something super complicated and trying to hack your systems. Usually it comes down to a lot of different other things that are far more simple and less sophisticated, but also not easy to always manage. So common attack scenarios in the events industry today, they include vendor supply chain breaches, and this is beyond the events industry as well. In every industry, and after working in the events industry, I worked for several other organizations. This is one of the top things that they're talking about, which is how do we manage vendor and supply chain attacks and that perimeter. Ransomware is still prevalent. It's hitting organizers, venues, ticketing systems, your suppliers. It could be your customers as well being impacted by that. And then staff and client phishing, social engineering, masquerading to be someone else. That's also happening. And now through AI, it's become much more realistic as well. Data leakage through AI tools. I'll talk about that a little bit more. Badge cloning, QR code exploits, insecure Wi-Fi networks has been a problem for years and continues to be a problem. And then payment terminal compromise. So it's so easy now to jump on eBay or other places and get these tools where you can just start receiving payments from other people's credit cards or snap their credit card information essentially when they're trying to tap on a payment terminal. So some of the case studies that I looked into that I thought I'll share for different perspectives of cybersecurity. So one is the Venice Film Festival data breach. So Venice Film Festival, you can imagine being quite large, very high profile, lots of high profile people visiting that as well. And we had attendee and journalist data that was breached and leaked. And really what that highlights is that even if you have a healthy budget, it still means that there can be a data breach at some point. So it doesn't guarantee you that you will not have a breach. The second one is Pandemonium Rocks. It was a music festival. Now, this music festival was sold to be a big thing. They had a lineup of artists, and then those artists backed out towards the end, close to the date. And then a lot of the people who bought the tickets, they wanted a refund. They didn't have a proper refund mechanism. So they had a fairly manual process. Now, because of the sizes of the refund, lots of people coming to them for refund requests, they released a refund request form onto the website. But they did this in urgency, right? Because they were trying to solve a problem quickly. And due to that urgency, the form was not resilient. And the form was compromised, and therefore any client requesting a refund, their credentials were breached, and their payment details, their bank details that they were provided, that was breached as well. So I think the point over there is to have the level of resilience, it sometimes takes time, and you need time. And if you are rushing into solutions, then you can miss, you can have some gaps. The third one is more recent, K-Club ransomware attack. I believe it happened a couple of months ago. And it's a fairly high-profile venue, and they were about to host a major event, the Irish Open. And the venue systems then got compromised before the Irish Open. And what was compromised was IT data, financial, so the finance department sort of data, administrative data, that kind of stuff. The event continued, but of course, that damages the reputation of the venue. The point I want to make over here is that we often go to different venues and we trust those venues. We put our trust in those venues to make sure that they are doing the right thing. They have resilient systems, but they are not foolproof either. So a quick poll before I move on. What do you see as your biggest risk? And I think there's no obvious answer over here. It perhaps depends on your organization, your work, where you're at, what's more common. Are you more worried about vendors and third parties? Are you more worried about AI misuse or staff mistakes leading to cybersecurity issues? Or do you have lots of legacy technology and tech debt that you're worried about? Or the traditional ransomware? So if you can just type in the chat again, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And as I said, there's no correct answer over here, but it's what are you thinking about at this point in time? So I can see ransomware, I can see mentions of AI and staff, which is the people side, the human side is always prevalent. AI again. And then one on vendor and third parties. Okay, so I think most of us are thinking AI, a few of us thinking, vendors as well. And the human side is, of course, always prevalent. So what I'll move to now is talking about third-party and supply chain risk. So as I said, this is one of the most important risks that a lot of investment is going into today, because in the past, investment was looking at other things like training people up, so the human side and those kind of things. They were also looking at how to make our core IT systems more resilient as well. But not enough investment went into the third-party protection side of things. Also, with the growth of SaaS solutions, with a more higher reliance on third parties, whether it's a technology solution or a technology partner that you use at a conference, all of these bring with them some level of risk as well. And that risk needs to be addressed, one way or another. So if I can cast your eye to the stat down on the slide, it says 83% of organizations have experienced a security incident involving a third-party vendor. So that means 83% of organizations, almost all organizations, have had some sort of security incident due to a third-party vendor being compromised. And that may have resulted in their data also being compromised. Or maybe it was not compromised, but they had to revisit that relationship with the vendor. So vendor security is of paramount importance in today's day and age. It is, so we often say humans are the weakest link. Now it's been considered that vendors are also, one of the weakest link in the chain that we have. So if you look at the high risk vendors that we have today, so we have players like outsourced IT, managed service providers, so that's what MSPs is. They often have privileged level of access. They have admin type of access to systems, to data, to code maybe that they're developing for you. And you really need to think about, what kind of security regime and processes that they have internally. You need to be able to ask them the right questions and feel that they are mature enough to protect your data if you're sharing your data with them. The other vendor types that feature as well is ticketing and registration systems and platform providers, event management systems, AV providers, venues, payment vendors, app developers, freelancers, contractors, I would say about volunteers and casuals as well. Quite often we are more than keen as event organizers to get as many volunteers and casuals onto our events because we need more hands to manage those events. When we do that, we also often give them a level of access to our network or systems that maybe in some cases should not be given. And I think this is something that we need to scrutinize a little bit more as well. That what level of access are we giving to people or partners who are coming in to do a particular part of the job? And you need to give them access just to be able to do that job, not to be able to do everything else on top of that job. So I'll come to an example over here of a real world vendor breach. It's a company called Ticketmaster or Live Nation. And there was, again, fairly recently, a pretty large data breach where it leaked credentials and personal information of 40 million users. 40 million users that have bought tickets through this platform for various different events. And obviously, there's an impact on reputation for Ticketmaster, you would say, right? Yes, that is definitely correct. But the impact of reputation does not just stay there. It also impacts the event organizers. So when event organizers partner with a particular partner, any issues that that partner has, if those issues are happening with your client's data or your client's event, then it's your reputation on the line as well. And that's why we need to take, vendors and vendor security really seriously. So I thought I'll have this very sort of simple decision-making exercise that we can all participate on. So just imagine that you need to organize a VIP special event in a new country. And based on your budget, maybe you can only fly 2 people, maximum of 2 people. But of course, you know that to organize a VIP special event night, you need more than that. So one of your staff has found a local vendor in that country to help organize your event. They've offered a great price for their services, so they've come to you with a quote that looks really good on paper. They've shared examples of their work, so they shared a Dropbox link with you with pictures of other VIP events that they've done. So you see photos of Trump and Elon Musk and other famous VIPs, based on the VIP events that they've done. And the salesperson or the business development person you're speaking with is very friendly. So, trying to close the deal really quickly as well. So as decision makers or as event organizers, ultimately responsible for this, what are the kind of cyber questions that you would ask them to qualify them as a vendor? And maybe at this stage, I might just invite anyone to raise their hand and ask, or just put it in the chat if you want to. But what are the kind of questions that you would ask such a vendor? Maybe someone is typing that I can't see. or if anyone wants to speak up. So you would ask the basic questions, I imagine. You would ask them about, okay, so I can see a question that's come. So if they have a DPO manager and procedure and training for cybersecurity, okay, that's a good question. What else might you ask them to be comfortable that, okay, they can be a potentially good partner for you? So we might ask them about if they've got security certifications. I think that's quite a common question that comes up when we look at vendors. We might ask about how they maybe protect their data, or if they have any VIP specific processes or something like that in place at the moment. So there are a whole range of questions we might ask them, right? So if I move to the next slide, what I have over here is definitely not comprehensive, but I think it will give you an idea of what are the kinds of questions that you can be asking your vendors. So do they store attendee or other sensitive data? Are they actually storing that, or are they just processing that? Where is the data hosted? Is it just hosted in their country, or is it backed up in other countries as well? Do they share sensitive data with other trusted providers? Every company uses other technology providers, other teams, other contractors. So you need to understand that with your sensitive data, how far is it going? Is it just staying with this organization, or is it going to other organizations? And what are those organizations like? Is MFA mandatory? So if it's in a system, or maybe in their internal environment, do they commonly use MFA? Security certifications, I mentioned that, like ISO 27001. But I would extend that question to also ask them, what's the scope of your ISO 27001 certification? Because getting an ISO 27001 certification on cybersecurity is a process in itself, yes, but it's not an impossible job. So if you wanted to really get that certification for part of your organization, you could actually get that. And then you could market at least in proposals to say that we are ISO 27001 certified. But that ISO 27001 certification may just apply for one part of the business. Maybe it's financial management and that's all. Maybe it does not apply to the complete operation side of things. So there's something called statement of applicability in ISO 27001, which you need to understand, where does it apply for that organization? Incident notification timeframe. So are they ready to accept clauses in the contract that if they were to have a breach, that they will inform you within 24 hours, for example, those kind of contractual clauses? Can they work offline if needed? Do they have backups in place? Do they conduct regular penetration tests? Do they segregate or separate your event data from other clients? Does your outsource IT partner enforce MFA, patching, audit trails, or all those things? But actually, going back to this example, I would also ask them that I would also question, actually, why did they share the VIP photos of an event with Trump and Musk and all of that with a potential client? So I would imagine that these are sensitive events. And if it's a VIP event and it's a closed door event, especially, then they should not be sharing. They should be having some sort of policies to even delete this kind of data, such as photos and the rest. So that's something to think about as well. So coming to part 4, and as I said, no presentation is complete without talking about AI. So here we are. And a lot of my personal work is these days is also happening in the AI space. So it's very relevant to me, but also to yourselves. So AI with ChatGPT especially, when it really took off a couple of years ago. At that time, there were many people doubting its capability, that kind of stuff. Is it really effective? Is it not so effective? But I think given the advancements of AI to today's day and age, now it's almost like this picture that when you need advice, but you aren't sure who to trust. Do I trust a human or do I trust ChatGPT? There are more questions going into ChatGPT than questions probably going to a doctor, a qualified doctor. There are more questions going to ChatGPT than going to a relationship counselor. And people are sharing sensitive things about maybe their relationships with their partner and that kind of stuff as well. So if that is happening and people are becoming more reliant on AI and AI solutions, then the stat down on the slide over there is, should not come as a surprise. So 38% of employees admit submitting sensitive work data to AI tools without approval. And why is that happening? It happens for various reasons. So first, it might be that the organization itself does not support the use of AI tools. It could also be that the workers, the employees, they're just used to an AI tool that they use in their personal life. So they might have a personal ChatGPT account, a personal Gemini account. And because they're used to those tools, they are taking company data and engaging with those tools and sharing with those tools and trying to get their work done, essentially. So all these things are happening, but no one can argue that there's benefits to AI, that there's efficiency, there's productivity, that no one can argue that. But at the same time, there's huge risks of data leakage as well. And this is happening. This is happening even in organizations that have tools. So if you imagine an organization that has Copilot, for example, Microsoft Copilot, we've got our environment, we've got Microsoft Copilot. But I know for a fact as well that many people prefer different AI platforms to Copilot. They think that ChatGPT is far better than Copilot. They think Gemini is much better at creating images or something or the other. So then they're much more likely to take, the content that they have, whether it's sensitive, whether it's not sensitive, and approach these platforms, upload to these platforms, and try to get a response that they're looking for. So some of the other event-specific AI misuse scenarios that are there is the first one I sort of talked about, which is unapproved AI data uploads, uploading sensitive attendee lists and contracts into unapproved tools. Second one is a lot of people use it for contract rewriting, but a lot of sensitive contracts can also go into those AI solutions. And the AI solutions, especially which are free or which are not well regulated or well protected, they can be training on that data. And once they train on that data, then that data can be misused in so many different ways. Public model exposure. So if you share your sensitive data with public data models, then it can be the extent of that sharing, the end result, the consequence of that sharing can be that information may surface in future prompts that users have when they engage with such systems. So imagine that you upload a salary sheet, let's say a finance team uploads a salary sheet or something like that into a tool. And then if it learns and trains on that data, then in the future, potentially, if someone asks a question like, what was the GM of a company, earning in that company, it might say, based on my knowledge and my previous learnings, they were earning this much. So those kind of effects can happen. Coming to deepfake, so 47% of organizations have experienced deepfake attacks. So deepfakes are essentially videos that are made to look real, but they're not real. Now with the use of AI, it looks extremely real. And that's also to do with voice, also to do with videos. We are seeing invoice fraud by impersonating legitimate suppliers using AI-generated content. Again, it could be a voice call that sounds really convincing as well. Also, illegitimate client requests through impersonation. So yeah, again, we need to be mindful of any kind of sensitive conversation happening with video or phones. We need to verify in another different way as well, rather than just taking it on board. So some of the practical rules that I've listed over here for safe AI use include protecting sensitive data. So firstly, avoiding inputting sensitive or confidential information into public AI tools. And how do your staff know about this is through education. So you need to continue to educate your staff and talk to them about the risks of using an external tool to using the sanctioned and approved tools that you have in your organization. Second is validating your AI outputs. We all know that AI hallucinates, right? So it gives back responses in a very convincing way sometimes, especially the general use AI tools like ChatGPT and others. So we need to always verify and validate the AI generated content. Only use AI approved tools, and you should have a policy that says that in your organization, that all staff should only use AI approved tools for the organization. And we also need to assess AI vendors more strictly. So, and I can't stress this point enough, because yes, we need to assess our vendors, our broader pool of vendors, but at the same time, we need to assess AI vendors even more strictly, because the market is such. There's so many AI startups, AI products that are coming out that potentially will not exist in a year's time, 6 months' time, 2 years' time. Many of them just started up 6 months ago or 12 months ago. Many of them have 1 or 2 people behind the scenes managing the entire product as well. But I think what I'm seeing as a consultant in this space as well is a lot of organizations getting really excited about the AI tools that they see that are marketed to them, and hearing about these tools, what they can do, the problems that they can solve, that with that excitement, they stop asking questions to the vendors. They're not asking enough questions of AI vendors. And I think we definitely need to. And then training and awareness is what I mentioned. So rolling out an AI usage policy that includes ethics, principles. So you need to understand what is okay with your organization and what is not okay with your organization. And that needs to be communicated in the AI usage policy. In fact, I've got some templates around AI usage policies as well. So if anyone's interested, I'm happy to share that. Just connect with me, ask me, and I'll share that with you. And as I said, you need to educate staff about AI as well. So coming to cost-effective security controls. And especially in these days, we know that the demands coming from executives or from the board of organizations is, how do we do more with less? How do we do more with less? In most cases, cybersecurity budgets have stalled. Very few organizations are spending even more on cybersecurity. So the expectation is, how can we keep on going on this journey, which we know that's an ongoing journey, and how can we do it in a smart way? So firstly, again, we need to get back to the basics, and we need to make sure that you've got multi-factor authentication implemented everywhere, as many places as possible. All the SaaS platforms that you're using, you either need single sign-on or MFA enabled in those applications. For the technical people in the call or in the group or listening in, combine it with conditional access as well. Especially important for the events industry. So most of us are conducting events in different locations, different countries, different cities. So you can use geolocation, you can use other means. And once you detect that a connection is coming in, you can enforce MFA in a stronger way with conditional access. Device patching. So patching is probably one of the most challenging parts of maintaining security posture for most security teams in organizations, or IT operations or security teams. So I previously had such teams as well. And they always struggle with, how do we patch these devices as fast as possible to avoid a zero-day attack or those kind of things. And really the only way to achieve some level of success is you have to be using automation tools to patch applications, to patch devices, and you have to be using vulnerability scanners to patch your code, because you have your developers, whether it's external developers or internal developers. We are developing applications, we are testing applications. We might even do a pen test, a penetration test once a year or twice a year. But the vulnerability scanners will give you real-time feedback as to what in the software tool is vulnerable and how to fix it. And that continuous cycle needs to be managed. And there are many tools that offer these kind of capabilities. The principle of least privilege is something that we must consider, if not implement. And really that concept is that if a user needs access to something, you're giving them the right level of access. And again, for the IT group, we need to conduct regular access reviews with all the access that is given out at a user level and also service account level. And lastly, account cleanup post-event, which again, I think not many organizations are doing this. Maybe the larger event organizers are, but not many of the mid-size and smaller ones are, which I think is surprising. Like, everyone wants to hold as much data as possible. You want case studies, you want all that history, but you can get that. You can, of course, get case study, you can get history without holding all your data. So think about removing or disabling accounts immediately after events. Think about strengthening offboarding, implementing data retention policies in your organization. What data do I keep? What do I not keep? Some other controls include network segmentation. This can be on-site or off-site. So on-site, it could be that you have part of the network segmented for speaker presentations, and that's not the same network as your registration check-in terminals. So these are the level of details that you need to get into when you discuss, the network requirements with venues. Device hygiene and access control. So we talked about patching and those kind of things, but we also need these controls on event laptops. There's so many again, event organizers that I've seen that use, let's say, laptop hiring companies and those kind of companies just to give us laptops for on-site at events. But these laptops are not always patched or up to date. They don't have the latest security measures on them. And then you're bringing these vulnerable laptops into sensitive event environments on site. So that itself is a risk that we need to manage. We need to ideally use up-to-date laptops, block unauthorized USBs, and disallow local admin rights so that no one can just install software on those devices. Even if they knew the password, they could not. And finally, password and file security using password managers, secure file upload portals. Talking about cost-effective implementation of cybersecurity, we can't deny that there's a cost to implementing security, right? So what I wanted to do with this slide is just spark some ideas, especially for organizers who maybe might not be doing this, as to how can you potentially even charge your clients for a higher level of security, for a high level of resilience in your solutions. So one example might be around business continuity upgrade. So where you provide a client event with backup devices, multiple dual internet links at a venue, pre-event failover testing that you do before you go on site, or even a complete business continuity plan that you produce and showcase to the customer that we have it all in place. At the least, that will be a great value add for that customer. The second thing you could do is a post-event data cleanup. And the key point over here is secure deletion. So again, you can offer this kind of service that not only are we going to run your event and accept all these details. But once the event is done, we're going to give you as a client what you need. And after that, we're going to securely delete the data that we accepted and produce a certificate around it, because we'll use an organization that does that. And so the client gets assurance that, okay, the right thing has been done and there's no sensitive client data sitting with the event organizer anymore. And this can extend to permission checks on presentations and photos. These days we've got AI-related tools that can now look at photos and identify people. So if someone said, please do not take, you don't have the permission to take my photos at an event, and you have the photographer taking photos, obviously, then you might have a stage gate to check and make sure that the person or the people who did not allow permission, their photos are not released on the event website, for example. VIP data stewardship. So you can have a mapping and defining security at every link of the data chain. So you can go to that level and offer that kind of service. Vendor compliance checks. You can give clients your assurance that every vendor that you partner with, you will go through a rigorous process on how to engage that vendor. And even to the extent of sharing these kind of insights with your client. So, for example, if in one space you can't find a vendor who has ISO certification or something else, let's say, and it's not the perfect vendor, you can share those insights with the client and say, okay, are we still okay to take on this risk? So again, that sets you aside from many other event organizers. So coming to data handling and ransomware preparedness, just got a couple of slides over here that talk about data handling, practical data handling tips. So firstly, classify your sensitive data. We know, so especially coming from IT and data teams in the past, when we introduce these kind of controls in organizations, most of the staff don't like these controls, where every document that they save, they have to classify that. Every email that they send, they have to classify that. But there's definite benefits to doing that, and it keeps your organization safe. Avoid emailing sensitive lists to anyone. Avoid email to start with in terms of sharing any kind of attachments. So use a secure portal instead. Use links that expire instead. USBs, as I said, you can ban USBs on devices, but in some cases you might need the ability to have USBs. And if you need that ability, then make sure that you have a way for encrypted USBs to be used. So that can be safer than just general USBs. Retain only the data you need. I spoke about that. Role-based access control. So give people the access that they need. And on the ransomware readiness side of things, so always have an offline attendee list, verify your backups, make sure. And when I talk about backups, I think, again, most organizations think of their own backups. I would extend that to your sensitive vendors. So, if you've got registration providers and others, I would question them. Are they conducting backup testing exercises, restore exercises, and show me some level of evidence around that. Annual restore drills on data, cloud fallback solutions, communication templates and response plans. So this is critical, right? So at the start of my presentation, I said that you can't protect every single scenario, and that's why you need to be prepared with a response plan. So if the worst happened, I have my key contacts in place. My key contacts should also include vendors, venue contacts, client contacts, etc., etc. It needs to be clear enough, the response plan, that anyone can execute it. Doesn't need to be one particular person. And the last segment of my presentation is talking about human risk, compliance, and assurance. So again, if I can cast your eyes to the bottom stat over there, 95% of all data breaches involve some kind of human error. So whether it's at your organization or at vendor organization or on the client side, it's 95% of data breaches involve a human. And so you can't deny that that's the surface that you need to protect as much as possible through training, through other exercises. And we are seeing phishing, deepfakes, especially with phishing exercises, with the illegitimate emails coming in. The combination of AI with phishing, it's far more realistic and much more difficult to understand if that email is true or false, is real or not real. And therefore, you really need to stop and think before you act. And that's the point on exploitation of event urgency. So working in the events industry, there's a concept, especially once you go on site, there's a feeling of urgency with everything. It's like, we need to get this done. You have a checklist, you have this, you have that. And with that urgency comes potential weaknesses that might come into play. So, and attackers, they love exploiting these kind of urgency scenarios. So I can see this as being a potential area where events professionals may be targeted through urgency of some kind of request on site. And again, we need to be making sure that we do things the right way. And AI voice cloning, that's happening even more often, like I said as well. And some people say, if you've never sent a VIP list to the wrong email, are you even an event manager? So it's very similar to if you're in IT and you haven't brought a system down, are you even in IT? So, you know, we all have these experiences. It can happen to the best of us. So some of the quick rules and protocols for staff and volunteers: avoid public Wi-Fi, check every link before you click, beware of urgent requests, like I said, follow protocol or have 2 channels of verification, maybe phone call and text or something. Think before sharing to socials. Beware of logins given to volunteers. We spoke about that. Consider more secure badge processes for VIPs. So it's not just a VIP can walk to a kiosk, self-print, and just walk in, because anyone can do that. Anyone can do that with a VIP email. Configure virtual events with some restrictions. So yes, I didn't want to dismiss virtual events completely, and we need to think about the right configuration for virtual events. So, you know, those links, if it's a closed event, especially, those links are individualized or have some kind of password or expire, those kind of things. And finally, compliance requirements and evidence for clients. So more and more clients are asking event organizers for their level of compliance, whether it's ISO, whether it's audits that you're doing, you know, what's the responsible AI, you know, statement that you have in your organization. They're asking for all these questions. But my point over here is that not every organization can invest and become ISO 27001 certified. And my tip for those organizations would be to at least have a security statement. And that security statement can provide that assurance to your client. What does that typically include? It includes things like management's commitment to cybersecurity through investment and continuous improvement. The core principles of cybersecurity in your organization. So if you're following the principle of least privilege, that would be mentioned. The key practices, without getting too specific about sensitive details, but sharing high level in that security statement. Key controls. So if you're using third-party registration platforms, for example, that's PCI DSS compliant, then it's worth mentioning that we are using a PCI DSS compliant registration platform for your event in the security statement. And key policies, compliance around GDPR, and finally a way to contact the organization's security expert. So the takeaways, this is a takeaway slide that I have, stuff that we talked about today. So have a vendor security checklist, prepare a fallback plan for your events, implement MFA everywhere, patch all your devices, on-site devices as well, provide appropriate access and conduct reviews, segment your networks, enforce AI usage policy and vet your AI providers really well, comply with standards or develop at least a security statement, only keep the data that you need, and every entity is a risk vector, whether it's attendees, partners, vendors. So thank you, everyone. Again, I'm Prem. You can scan this QR code over here to connect with me on LinkedIn, or just search for my name on LinkedIn, or you can email me directly. And yeah, I'm happy to continue the conversation. So like I said, I've got a couple of free templates on AI vendor checklist, AI policy. I'm happy to share if you connect with me. But I also work in AI, cyber, and tech, and I'm happy to speak about any kind of problems that you or your organizations are facing, any challenges. I knew someone will ask me that question. That is my QR code safe. Well, try it out.
Thanks so much, Prem, for your time today. It was, I'm sure it was very useful for all of us who are on the call and for those who are going to be watching the recording as well.
Thank you.
I have one question, Prem. It's just regarding wider education on this kind of topic. Like, are there good certified programs that are out there that you're aware of if people wanted to have more education, more in-depth education?
I think not specific to the events industry, but more generic information. I think, yeah, there's lots of content available, whether it's on LinkedIn Learning or the Khan Academy or other, learning platforms. There's a lot of content over there. So yeah, people can subscribe to that and learn that. Also on YouTube, of course, there is, but YouTube has a lot more unverified and content that I'd be careful of, let's say.
Mm, very good. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody today? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Prem, so thank you so much, and I hope we can stay in touch now, um, as we move forward. And good luck with everything with your new consultancy firm. I'm sure everything is going to go very well for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, look forward to keeping in touch as well. Thanks for this opportunity and hope everyone found value in today's
Yeah.
learning.